Welcome to the Silver Screen Podcast. I'm Jared Boomer.
And I'm Katie Gainey West. This is a podcast about movies and pop culture.
And today, reviewing another Best Picture nominee. That is the movie Tar. Cate Blanchett plays a classical music composer. So we'll get into our thoughts on that one today. Definitely an interesting movie. It's not going to appeal to everybody. I think this is one of the more artsy Oscar films, and we've done a few of those so far. But the ones we've done, I could see how a person that maybe doesn't watch a lot of movies a year would still enjoy it. This one, I feel like you really got to be into this to really love it. So we'll talk about that today on the episode. First for news, though, the BAFTAs were last night when we're recording this, which is the British Film Awards.
Yep.
And a good indicator sometimes of what might win at the Academy Awards next month. So All Quiet on the Western Front won the most awards, won 7 awards, including Best Film and Best Director. And then Outstanding British Film was The Banshees of Inisherin. Best Animated Film, Guillermo del Toro's Pinocchio.
Obviously.
And then Best Lead Actress was Cate Blanchett for this movie we're about to talk about. And Best Lead Actor was Austin Butler for Elvis.
Yes.
So,
I heard a couple things. Did you hear they announced the wrong actress?
Did not. Did they?
It was really sad though. Well, from what I read, Troy Kotzer was announcing it, who is deaf, who is a person who is deaf, who we really enjoy, Jared and I do.
Yeah.
And he was announcing it, and someone, I don't know how this happened. I didn't read how it happened, but he said Carey Mulligan for She Said.
Okay.
But it was Cate. I am positive, without even seeing footage, that Carey Mulligan was super gracious about it. I'm not worried about it. Especially because Troy is someone who happens to be deaf, but sad that happened. Austin Butler. So I thought that was interesting. I'm glad he's getting recognition because I do think he put forth, I definitely was of the camp that he was extremely impressive as Elvis. I loved him as Elvis. However, I really want Brendan Fraser to win. So I'm hoping he'll get the Oscar.
I feel like
and Austin.
Brendan was the front runner for a while, but now Austin's winning at all this stuff, like the Golden Globes and now the BAFTAs. So,
but the Oscars they don't love young pretty boys. They wait until they're older, for real. This always happens. Brendan is such a comeback kid. I just feel like he's getting it. I could be wrong, and I don't know if this year, if my heart is leading me with like correct guesses or if I'm just doing what I want to win, but I hope Brendan gets it. I was reading, though, that the Directors Guild Awards were very different from the winners of the BAFTAs, and that's interesting because a lot of times people say the Oscars, like, those will line up and kind of give you a good direction, and they were completely different from what I read. So that was interesting. And lastly, I am not surprised in the slightest that Banshees and All Quiet on the Western Front were revered by the British Arts and Film Television Academy or whatever, because of course they would be. They're both like European films.
Yeah, that would make a lot of sense. Yeah. Yep. Okay. Well, that's basically it for news, just the BAFTAs as we get, closer and closer to the Academy Awards coming up here very soon. So some recommendations now. I only have one recommend. It's a book I started reading. It's called A Night of the Living Rez by Morgan Talty.
I saw that on your my Goodreads, but and I was intrigued by this. Tell me.
I think it's how you say his name. So, but basically it's about a native community in Maine. So it's short stories. So it's like 12 or 13 short stories in there. And I'm about halfway done with it right now. So it's pretty good. I haven't read a short story collection in a while, but I like reading those because they're short. So you can read 20 pages and then come back and read another one or whatever. So yeah, but I like it so far. It's a good short story collection. So
awesome. Well, I have 3 recommendations, but I will keep it brief. So I was given this as a gift, a graphic novel, which I don't read a lot of those, called Always Never by Jordi Lefebvre, I think. I think if it's French, it's Lefebvre. It's just kind of like the R's, it's not there. It was excellent. And I was shocked by how much I loved this. Just because it's a graphic novel, I wasn't really sure. It's like a love story, but there's some gut-wrenching moments to it. And I was just surprised. I read it just in one sitting. I couldn't stop. But since it is a graphic novel, it's not like you're sitting for 4+ hours reading it. It takes about under 2. but it was excellent, and I was just shocked by how much emotion I felt when it considering it was a graphic novel. So that was great. Um, then I also finished a book, and I have had a very, just as I suspected, a very poor reading month because of the play being in full swing. But I also read Fenley Donovan is Killing It by El
Okay.
Cosimano. That has been on my to be read list for probably a year and a half, almost 2 years. It was so cute, and I'm sure a lot of people. It's definitely kind of like an Instagram social media popular book, but it's about a mom. She's a divorcee with two young kids. She's kind of in the middle of the custody battle, and she is a writer, but she's at a Panera Bread, which is also just very American mom. Like, of course, she's at a Panera Bread, and someone mistakes her for a contract killer. And so they hire her to kill someone. And she's like, ooh, I don't know that I want to jump to murder. I just write books about murder. So that becomes a whole thing. But it reminded me of I love the Janet Ivanovich series about Stephanie Plum, and I've talked about that before on here. And a lot of my friends love them. I think this is like the brand new, or the first Stephanie Plum series. Like when you start to fall in love with the characters, and it was so witty and just so quick and fun. And I almost thought this was better. Like it was just, I liked the characters. It was intriguing. And I also was surprised how she was able to either, not to ruin it, but like evade murder or
Hmm.
somehow just not be quite as involved. I don't want to ruin it. That's all I can say. But
Okay.
it was really interesting, and it shocked me, and I was surprised by how much I liked it. And the characters are great, and there's 3 of them, so I'm going to read the other 2 for sure. And then lastly, Jared, have you heard of or started watching Perfect Match on Netflix?
I have not. No.
Okay, so only the first 4 episodes are out as of today, the 20th of February. I've watched 2. It takes a bunch of I'm only watching it because it's kind of like crap television, that you can just it's like mindless television. I shouldn't say crap. It's mindless. You don't have to think.
Yeah.
It's taking a bunch of reality stars from Netflix shows who like either got engaged, like Love is Blind. They either didn't get married or they broke up or whatever, but it takes them from like The Circle, Love is Blind, The Mole, and a couple others, and they're all put together, and it's like a competition. It's kind of like Survivor, but
Okay.
to fall in love, and it's ridiculous, and the people are all really pretty arrogant and whatever else, but it's just mindless crud, and I love it. So I've watched 2 episodes, but if you're interested in Love is Blind or any of those other shows like I am, and you've watched them on Netflix, you'll know the people. So it's fun to watch.
Okay.
Perfect Match. Yes. And Nick
Cool.
Lachey is the host because he
Okay.
and his wife have been hosting a lot of
Yeah.
those. Yeah.
Very nice. And now we'll get into our discussion of the movie Tar, released on October 28th, wide release, and then December 20th, streaming. I believe this is on Peacock now. Is that correct?
Yes, that's where I watched it.
Okay.
Yep.
Okay. So if you have
It is still there
Peacock,
as of 2 days ago. So
you can check out Tar there. It's rated R for some language and brief nudity, and then runtime is 2 hours and 38 minutes. Another long movie. IMDb is a 7.5 out of 10. Rotten Tomatoes critics 91%. Audience 73%. And this did not make a ton of money at the box office. $6.5 million domestically, $13.8 million worldwide. So probably a little lower than they were expecting. You get a movie with Cate
yeah.
Blanchett, you probably think that's going to make at least maybe 30, 40 million
Mhm.
dollars when all is said and done. So
I
and the
don't know that
synopsis.
this
Oh, go
is
ahead.
sorry. I don't know it's a movie though that I would look at the marketing and be super interested. And I definitely have a comment about the marketing later, which seems to be a theme that has come up in many of the Oscar nominees you and I have watched so far this year. That the marketing, not even just Oscar nominees, but marketing is not accurately depicting what the film is about.
Yeah, I would agree that's the case for this one too.
Mm-hmm.
So, the synopsis for this one is set in the international world of Western classical music. The film centers on Lydia Tarr, widely considered one of the greatest living composer-conductors and the very first female director of a major German orchestra. And this movie is nominated for 6 Oscars, including Best Actress, Best Picture, Best Directing, Best Original Screenplay, Cinematography, and Film Editing. So
Yes.
lots of nominations for the movie Tar, and it's directed by Todd Field. He's done a little bit of everything. He started as a jazz musician, and he also acted. He hasn't directed a ton of films, but he is known for Little Children, In the Bedroom, and Eyes Wide Shut. That's probably his most
Yeah.
well-known
That's the
project.
only one I knew.
Yeah, of those 3, that's the same thing.
Yeah.
That's the only one I knew. So, and he has no upcoming projects listed right now. So, we will take a quick break here on the show. We'll come back, talk about the cast for this movie, which is pretty much just Cate Blanchett, and we'll give our likes and dislikes too for Tar. And we're back here on the Silver Screen Podcast talking about Tar. This is really a one-woman show starring Cate Blanchett in the lead role.
Thank you so much, Jared. Yes, Cate, lots to say about Cate, but we just felt like it was probably best to highlight her. So Cate Blanchett stars in this movie as Lydia Tarr. She is, of course, an Australian actress, best known for Carol, Blue Jasmine, Nightmare Alley, The Aviator, and the Lord of the Rings franchise. She's been nominated for 8 acting Oscars. At least that's what I said. 8 acting Oscars, and has already won 2 Best Actress Oscars for Blue Jasmine and The Aviator. If she wins again, she will be tied with Frances McDormand with 3 acting Oscars. However, Jared, do you happen to know, pop quiz, do you happen to know who has the most Oscars of acting Oscars?
Most acting Oscars.
Yes, I knew this. I've always known this.
Are they still alive?
No, they're one of my favorite people ever, one of the best actors ever, and love.
Audrey Hepburn?
No, but Katharine Hepburn. Okay. Very good. I think Audrey only won once, which sucks.
Okay.
But for Roman Holiday, her first movie.
Yeah.
But Katharine Hepburn has won 4 times. She was amazing. But what's interesting, I just think is fun, Cate Blanchett portrayed Katharine Hepburn in The Aviator, which is one of the movies she won the Oscar for. So if she wins 2 more times, she'll be tied with someone that she played before, which is interesting. I also always forget that Frances has 3. That is crazy to me.
Me too.
So good for her, though. Okay. Anyway, so I already told you that. And then next up, she already has 5 upcoming projects listed. So I wrote down 3. Some of them are Brideshead Revisited, which we just mentioned in a previous episode, Borderlands, and Disclaimer. So we'll see how those go.
Okay.
And then this movie does have I would say good supporting actors, but not people that are super famous. And I kind of just didn't want to highlight. But Mark Strong, we definitely know. Mark Strong's in this, Naomi Merlant, and Nina Haas. And you might recognize them. I've seen them in other things, but I just felt like Kate's really the highlight of the film. So.
Yeah, this movie's kind of weird in that it doesn't have like storylines that kind of flow throughout the entire movie. So like a character might show up for 20 minutes and be really important during that 20 minutes, and then we never see them again for the rest of the movie. So it's very interesting in how they like wrote this out and decided to do the screenplay for this in terms of like storytelling. So we'll get into our likes and dislikes now. First, like obviously Cate Blanchett is very good in this. She totally embodies this role of Lydia Tarr. It's very believable that she could be this classical music composer / college professor also at the same time. She's kind of doing that as well, teaching classes like classical music classes. So, but she does a really good job in the role. You can tell she really understands the role, and I think she brings more to the role than probably what was written on the page for the script.
Good observation.
And really like embodies it. So
yep, couldn't agree more. To me, Cate was maybe the only thing I really liked about the film. I agree with you, Jared. I hadn't thought that through, but the way you said that, I love that she probably brought more to the role than they even intended. I think she's exquisite, and I hope I haven't misled anyone how much I admire and enjoy Cate Blanchett as an actress. I think she is exceptional and one of the best living actors we have. I didn't watch this movie and go, we'll give her the Oscar, which I definitely felt about Danielle Deadwyler until, and even Michelle Yeoh and Michelle Williams. I haven't seen yet, but Michelle Yeoh, right now I'm like, yeah, I wouldn't be upset by that at all. This movie, I just thought, yeah, that was an Oscar-worthy performance, but do I think she should win her 3rd because of it? In my opinion, no, because I expect that kind of acting from Cate in every film. So I'm never surprised by it. But she was exquisite in this role. She totally embodied the character. And I think you're kind of supposed to hate her. And I absolutely did.
Yeah, same here. So also interesting setting for a movie. Obviously, we don't get a lot of well, now we're getting a lot of movies about classical music composers because this is like the year that all of them are going to come out. We have that one with Bradley Cooper that I think is supposed to come out later this year. And then what's the other one I always forget the name of that's coming out?
Maestro's the one with Bradley Cooper.
There's another one, though, that's coming out.
Oh, Chevalier.
Yeah. Yep.
Yeah.
So, yeah.
Which I'm excited. Really excited about both of those films, much more than this one.
Yeah, so we're getting two movies about composers coming in the
Hmm.
next year or so. But the setting is interesting. It's not a theme that you see very often in movies, so that's to be appreciated. So,
Yes, I did like that. That was a highlight for me. I know I said Kate's probably the only thing, but she's the only major thing I really enjoyed about the movie. But I was in orchestra, and I'm not just saying this because I was in it. I enjoyed that this focused on like the symphony and professional musicians and composers and how specialized and difficult those careers can be. Um, I know some people that are professional musicians. I went to school with some that are professional in orchestras now, and I'm so proud of them. And some are classically trained in opera. That's so cool. I could never do those things. Orchestra wasn't something that I say I excelled in, but I did play viola for 6 years, and I really love classical music. I mean, that is something that I have consistently enjoyed my whole life because of ballet and other things. So I think it's great that they did. I think they should continue to make movies about this because I think people should be introduced to other kinds of music rather than just pop, mainstream, country, alternative. So I like that. And I also particularly like that they talked about composers. I think a lot of times I'm guilty of really loving classical music, but not thinking a lot about composers. So it was neat that they focused on that career choice. For instance, until this movie, and my sister-in-law is a music teacher, but I never knew this. I never knew to compose that the left hand was doing something versus the right hand, that one keeps time and one shows the mood. And I'm sure I, in a subconscious way, understood that when I was watching a conductor and playing in orchestra and band, but I never really realized that that was like a specialized thing that they learned. So that was fascinating. I actually learned some new stuff.
another like that I had was I thought the editing was really cool in this movie. The cinematography, obviously, it's nominated for an
Mm-hmm.
award for that, but I thought that that was very well done throughout the course of the movie. So just wanted to give a little props to that. I thought that was cool. And then another like was just the psychological element, which is kind of a like and a dislike for me,
Same.
which we'll talk
Exact
more
same.
about in the dislikes. But it's interesting to see Cate Blanchett's character kind of like spiral out of control as the movie goes on. And it's more of a slow burn, obviously, but by the end, she's like very manic, but doesn't really
Mm-hmm.
start out that way. She starts out a little bit that way, but definitely as things occur and as stuff happens, she gets more and more manic and unhinged throughout the course of the film. But I liked that aspect of it.
Yes, so did I. I agree with you most of the time, but definitely I thought that it was a like and a dislike because I think the marketing was incorrect. And I thought there was going to be something like a she was slowly going insane. I didn't think this was going to be what it turned out to be, which spoiler, if you got to turn this off now, come back. I didn't think this was going to be about a suicide or murder she possibly had a hand in. I think it was a suicide, but and also sexual assault allegations. I had that all came out of left field. So I was intrigued by all the stuff that was happening in the movie, but in the end, it didn't lead me to the right conclusion either. And they had to explain to me what happened.
Do we have any more likes before we move on to
Mm,
dislikes?
oh, I did like the setting of Berlin. I think we don't
Okay.
see.
Yeah.
I have been to Berlin, which is very cool. But I think we don't see. I guess we see Berlin in action movies and stuff. You kind of see like the big, like the Brandenburg Gate and things like that. But it was interesting to see homes, different apartments and stuff in Berlin. And then the thing that stood out to me was actually where the young cellist lived, that it was covered in graffiti, because when I went there they told us graffiti is completely legal and encouraged, and they consider that a form of art, so they don't
Okay.
mind if anybody does graffiti or tags things. And I thought that was interesting, and it's very different than the stuff we see here. A lot of it really does look like art, so I just thought that was an interesting little element that I happened to know and picked up on in the film.
Yeah, that is kind of cool because, like what you said, when you see it in action movies, it's like if it's in a Mission Impossible or a James Bond movie,
Yeah,
maybe we're there for 20, 30 minutes and then we
right.
move on to another city. And it's not like we're really exploring the city that much. It's like, here's a couple buildings that, Daniel Craig can run on top of for this
Yeah.
action sequence.
And
So,
Berlin was very cosmopolitan. It was very posh. It was very like there were a lot of street musicians and people performing for money, but they were really good. And I do remember I had a couple run-ins similar to Paris where some people were less than polite, but
hmm.
overall I went to I think 3 or 4 cities in Germany and really enjoyed it. It kind of exceeded my expectations.
Nice. So,
Yeah.
let's move into dislikes now for this movie because there's not a lot of likes here.
Oh no.
One of the dislikes is this movie is very pretentious. It is like, I am better than you, and I know that I'm better than you, and you will never understand all the stuff that's going on in this movie that we're not going to just like explicitly say, but you're going to have to like
Right.
read 7 articles on to figure out what our meaning was of that particular part. Like, that's just kind of the vibe for the whole movie. And I don't mind those type of movies that are like, maybe I have to think a little bit more, or maybe I need
Sure.
to pay attention, or maybe there's a deeper meaning here to some things. But when a lot of the plot for the movie is that, and like, all the messages of the movie are basically that way, it definitely kind of comes off the wrong way to like the average. I like to think of the average movie fan when we review these of like
Yeah.
somebody that like just enjoys watching movies. And I don't know that you would really like this if you're not like an uppity up. So
Exactly. And to me, really, if somebody said describe the film, the first word I would think is pretentious. And I don't think that's a good sign. I never want that to be a descriptor of a film. And I do think it was a choice. I do think they wanted people to feel less than, like they don't understand it's supposed to be cerebral and complex and all of that. But Jared, you put that perfectly. This is not an everyman kind of movie or every woman kind of movie. And even someone like I happen to have some background in music. I definitely know how to read music and play music, but like I've even been in orchestra and stuff and have a lot of friends that do this. And even I was like, wait, what? And so much just went over my head. And it wasn't even just talking about music, it was every storyline. There was so much by the end of the film I didn't understand. I just had to Google it. And I think that's a really bad sign. Like when you don't know that like the main allegation was sexual assault by the end, I feel like that's a real big red flag. And I don't know if I'm dumb, but I didn't get it.
no, I didn't pick up on some of those things either. So I think that like you said, it was very pretentious. So,
Hmm.
and we just had a lot of questions when it was over. So
Yeah.
I would have liked to like, she's making an album during this movie or whatever, like not really an album, but
Yeah,
like a
a
recording.
recording of playing is it Brahms? Who is she talking about?
It's
Oh my god.
Mahler. Is it Mahler?
Mahler's
Okay,
Fifth
yeah.
Symphony, which is very, very famous. Most people would recognize the music from that. Yeah.
So I would have liked more in the terms of that storyline because I think that would have been
Yeah.
more interesting. And you get a little bit of it, like when she's shooting the cover for the
Hmm.
album or whatever, and a few other things. But I think that would have been an interesting storyline to follow. Is like, and that could have made for a really interesting movie. Is like, what is the process going to be for us recording this live performance?
Yeah.
And that could have added some pressures and things as well. Like it has to be perfect because we're recording it and it's going to be archived and we're going to sold and all that stuff. So
Yeah.
I thought that was a plot that was kind of just like shoehorned in there that I would have liked maybe a little bit more on.
Yes, and questions. This is something that I've obviously thought over the last few days about this, but on the fly, here are questions I was left with. What was the conflict here? Uh, did the woman kill herself, or did Lydia kill her? Um, how was Petra conceived? And I don't mean that as in I don't mind that they were in a lesbian relationship, but like there's just no answered questions about like how this child showed up, who this child belongs to. I couldn't tell if they were still married or in the middle of a divorce. I didn't understand the multiple apartments. I didn't understand if the cellist was almost a figment of her imagination. I didn't understand why she cared about the woman with the boots in the bathroom. And she obviously didn't want her to have whatever the first chair was, but it was weird. I don't even know what the point of that was. I didn't understand Mark Strong was even a composer. I had no idea that that's what was going on. I thought he was just a colleague who like either conducted music or was like an agent or a publicist. I had no idea what his job was, even after that long conversation they have in the restaurant. So only in the end, when she tries to hurt him, did I realize he was a composer. And then the other thing, this is small, but she's in the bathroom at another time, and I can tell she's nervous. I think that's what they're trying to get across, but her feet are not on the ground. And then suddenly she puts them down on the ground. And I was like, what was going on there? Just confused. I was just confused about so many things. And I didn't understand what the point was of the film. And it felt like it took 2 hours and 38 minutes to get somewhere. And we never really arrived at a conclusion except that she's crazy.
Yeah, I would agree. So the only question there that I can answer for you, I think a little
Tell
bit
me, please.
is the
Anything you can
bath
tell me is great.
the bathroom thing. So like the first time she goes in there, she's
Yeah.
in the bathroom and she sees that Russian girl Olga.
Yes.
And I think the reason they show the shoes is because the audition is like a blind audition. So when she's auditioning, she sees the shoes again and knows
Yes.
that it's her, and that's why she decides to like give her preferential treatment or whatever, and gives her like that
Oh.
soloist spot in
I don't
that.
think I caught it was Olga. I thought it was
Okay.
somebody else, and that
Yeah.
she didn't choose that woman because she wanted. I guess I like knew in a way she wanted Olga, but I didn't understand why. I thought it was a different woman that she saw in the bathroom.
Yeah.
Okay, that makes a lot more sense.
But that one example is like how the whole movie is. Like that's what
Yeah.
it's trying. The plot is like it's trying to do. You have to just figure it out yourself. And
Yeah.
like you had 7 or 8 things there, and I could talk about one that I understood.
Yeah.
Of those 7 or 8, and the rest of them I had a lot of questions as well. And then you go through this movie. And it's 2 hours 40 minutes or whatever, and 2 hours of 20 minutes of it, not a lot is happening. And then the
No.
last 15 minutes, she performs the symphony, runs up on stage and attacks somebody, goes
Yeah.
crazy, and it's like that all happened and then the movie's over. It's so
Well, and I read one article, they were like, this movie's a slow burn. You get all these payoffs at the end. And I was like, no, it was just slow and there were 0 payoffs. And honestly, Cate is such a good actress. I'd watch an audition tape and would have found it more interesting and rewarding than this film. And the woman that was her personal assistant, which I'm trying to find that woman's name right now, Francesca, that was her
yes.
personal assistant. She ends up not picking her to be like a soloist or something. I didn't quite understand why she didn't pick her or why she let her on. And then that woman disappears and we never see her again. And I was just like, what? What was the point of that? I think I guess I kind of know the point of some of these things. It's that no one meant anything to her. And she was willing to step on anyone she needed to step on to get to be number one. But I thought it was interesting that, and another thing, her wife, which is Sharon. Yeah, Sharon, played by Nina Haas. She says everything in your life has been transactional except for your daughter. Even that I didn't understand. And then there was one other thing that just left me like, oh, the whole interaction she has with the young gay man at Juilliard. That I think that's just so you hate her and to see she's pretentious. I think she's saying, I'm a lesbian. How does that make me special? And I think she's trying to say, like, it doesn't matter if the composers were like white chauvinist pigs because they wrote beautiful music. But I just felt
Yeah.
like that whole interaction was so confusing by the end. I was like, what was that? I don't know if she's against gay men. I don't know if she's for all composers. I don't know if she's like for white chauvinist pigs. That was so confusing. And that scene, that could have been a scene like in Babylon that really paid off where they were trying to get the sound. And you see the same thing over and over. And it's like 30 minutes of watching something over and over. But at the end, you just see how difficult it was to film something with sound when you'd never had it before. This scene was like that long. And at the end, there were 18 questions and I had no idea what happened and I was bored.
Yeah. Yep. I would agree. So I like this review. I'm on Rotten Tomatoes right now, just looking at some
Good,
reviews.
yeah.
This one's from Phoebe Chin of The
Okay.
Nation, and I think it kind of sums up kind of what you've been saying a lot, Katie. She said, by withholding memory and any substantial
Substantial?
yes,
Substantive. That word is
substantive
so hard. It's such a hard word.
evocation of Tar's childhood, Field avoids the rationale of a backstory. Her abhorrent behavior is never given a legible motivation and therefore partial absolution. So
Thank you. Yes.
that really sums it up well. That's kind of like our big complaint with it as well. So it's also too long. We mentioned that a little bit, but
so long. And I don't get as bothered by long movies, but for another frame of reference for people, we're reviewing All Quiet on the Western Front. It's almost to the minute the same length. I watched them both this weekend and I was fascinated by All Quiet on the Western Front. Everything that was happening, even though it's a war story, we've seen a lot of them, even though it's depressing and all these things, I was so engaged. I was so interested. I wanted to see what was happening and I understood what was happening. And I was left with almost no questions at the end. And this movie, was the complete opposite. Yet people are raving about it. It's also a Best Picture nom. And I think the only thing that was really remarkable was Cate's performance,
Mm-hmm.
which
Yeah.
I still don't think should win, but it probably will.
So the plot for this movie on Wikipedia is only 6 paragraphs. I guess really 7. There's another really short one.
Yeah.
But that's not really enough plot for a 3-hour movie. When
No.
I can go on Wikipedia and read the entire plot in 6 paragraphs, read the plot in 3 minutes, then that's
Yes.
not really enough for a whole movie. So, and I'm
Mm-hmm.
not saying Wikipedia is going to give you every detail of what happens in the plot, but reading this, it sums it up pretty well in terms of
Yeah.
what happens throughout the movie. So, um, another dislike is the false marketing. So when this trailer came out, I was actually excited to see this. This movie from the trailer looked like it was going to be a psychological thriller where Cate Blanchett kind of goes insane, has all these demons that she's dealing
Mm-hmm.
with, is so much pressure on her, and how is she going to deal with that? And the trailer is a very good trailer in terms of like making you interested in the movie. The problem is the trailer is not really what the movie's about. The movie is very slow. Not a lot of stuff happens. The trailer makes it seem like it's going to be an action-packed thrill ride the whole time, and that's definitely not what happens here.
Yes. And I changed my letterbox score. I'm just trying to be more true to myself this year. And I think sometimes I worry because somebody rates something highly or it has a lot of buzz that is the way I should feel at the end. And I just totally disagree with this one. And now I'm hoping because I dog on this movie so much, I hope it doesn't win everything at the Oscars because that tends to happen where I hate the film that wins. Um, I will say, based on other things I've watched, I don't think this is going to get Best Picture. I really don't. Do you
No,
have
I
any
don't
thoughts
think
on
so.
that? Okay.
I don't think this is getting Best Picture. I
No.
think this might have a chance for, let's see here, what was it nominated for again?
Well,
I think Cate has a
cinematography.
chance.
Yeah, I think
Yeah.
Cate does it. Cinematography, though, is very hard to win when you go up against a war movie
Yeah.
because war movies almost always win.
Well, and I think about like what they're shooting in All Quiet on the Western Front, like the
Oh,
sequences they're capturing and what
oh
they're
my gosh.
capturing in this movie, and it's like night and day in terms of how
Yeah,
difficult it would be. So,
yeah.
yeah, I could see Cate winning for Best Actress, and then Best Original Screenplay, probably not. I think there's some really good screenplays this year, so I see like Banshees of Inisherin winning that, or I don't,
Mm-hmm.
I don't think this win. This might get a win for Cate, but I think that might be its only win on the
Yeah.
evening. So,
But that's so Cate, if she wins, is almost as upsetting to me as if Anna won for Blonde. Because
mhm.
I just think if there's nothing good about the film except one actor, and you look at a film like Everything Everywhere All at Once or Banshees of Inisherin, where the entire ensemble and almost everything else is nominated for something, that should tell you a lot, I think. So anyway, I think I've dogged on this enough, but I just was so disappointed by this movie and I wouldn't recommend it to a soul.
No, you feel all 3 hours of this.
Yeah.
So yeah, just unless you really enjoy classical music, but even like you said, Katie, like
Yeah.
you played an instrument for many
Yeah.
many years, and and your sister-in-law is a music teacher, so
Mhm.
like you've got a lot of connections there,
Yeah.
and you were even bored by it. So I don't know if
Yeah.
I can even recommend this to somebody that really loves classical music
No,
or
and you don't learn a lot about classical music either. I
no.
think you learn more about compositions and composers than anything else.
Yeah. So,
Yeah.
I mean, yeah, not a huge fan. I also dropped
Mm-mm.
down my letterbox score as well.
I'm
So,
really I'm sorry. No,
no.
I don't need to apologize. I feel bad when I get so riled up about a movie, but I do think like if I feel this strongly about it, I usually have reasons to back it up. And this movie was just an enormous
Mhm.
disappointment.
I would agree. So, are we ready for our grades, our
Yes,
scores?
I think
Okay,
I'm
I think
first.
think you are first.
I'm going with a straight 60.
Okay.
I think that's generous. I mainly am giving it 60 because of Kate's acting. Um, I do think the caliber of the film is probably higher than a lot of films I will see this year, but I just think it was so disappointing at every turn. I have no idea what really even happened in the film, and I think you could have had a great half hour of television that told this story.
Yeah.
I cannot believe how much praise this is getting. It was awful. So
Mhm.
60 and you're welcome because it should have been a 30, but 60.
I guess I'll go a little bit higher than you because I have it at 3.5 on Letterboxd right now.
Okay.
It was 4, but I dropped it down when we were talking. So
Okay.
I think I'll go 65 for this
Okay.
one. So I mean, I did like the cinematography and stuff and
Mm-hmm.
things like that. And I thought Kate's performance was good, but yeah, it's just
Yeah.
very boring overall and very slow and very pretentious as well. So I think of a
Ugh.
movie like The Social Network, which is also kind of pretentious, like in
Sure.
terms that it's like about Mark Zuckerberg and he's just kind of a pretentious person.
And everyone hates
But
him.
like the way that movie like uses the script to tell the
Yes.
story and like goes so much faster through things, even though it's about a person that maybe you don't connect with as like an audience member, like you're not like
Yeah.
rooting for them per se.
Right.
I thought that obviously, if you compare it to this movie, which they're totally different, but like they both kind of deal with like pretentious people. So
Well,
I
yeah,
just
in
thought
that
of that.
movie, I never rooted for Zuckerberg and definitely don't now, but that movie had conflict and drama, and you
Hmm.
knew why people were mad. You knew what was at stake. You knew what they were fighting over. You knew who was on whose side. That all made sense. I didn't have any
Yeah.
questions at the end of that
No.
except like, ooh, how'd the lawsuits end up?
Yeah, like, is this actually how it happened in real life? Was
Yeah.
my main question after that. So,
Yeah.
yeah, but this is just very slow. And like you said, could have been 30 minutes, could have been, I think if this would have been an hour and a half movie, I probably would have enjoyed it a lot more.
Hmm.
So, why is it 2 hours and 38 minutes? We'll never know. So, okay, well, that's this episode of the Silver Screen Podcast. You can follow the show on social media at Podcast Silver on Twitter and Instagram. Just search the Silver Screen Podcast on Facebook, and you can like us there. And our Letterboxd profiles are in the description for the show, so you can click down there, follow us on Letterboxd. And on our next episode of the show, we're going to be reviewing another Best Picture nominee, All Quiet on the Western Front, which is on Netflix. If you have not seen it, that's where you can watch it. It's also in German, so they have a lot of different options though. You can watch it in the language with subtitles. You can watch the dub version.
Yeah.
Netflix has a lot of options for
Mine
that.
defaulted. I didn't even have the option, which is
Okay.
crazy. But mine
Okay.
defaulted to dubbed in English, which was
Okay.
fine. Yeah.
Yeah. Yep. So that'll be our next episode of the show, All Quiet on the Western Front.
Until next time, we'd like to thank the Academy.